Hi, my name is Eduardo, and this presentation is about the WWE history, an organization of wrestling. But first, we need to know what is wrestling. In Mexico, we know wrestling like lucha libre. It's a very famous sport, something about the culture. We see people in masks fighting in the ring. Wrestling is something similar. This sport is most known on Canada and Europe and the United States. And finally, we have the puroresu. The puroresu is known the wrestling in Japan. Okay, but in these three styles of wrestling in general, there are some things that are very similar. We have a good guy, like in Mexico we know it, a técnico. In the wrestling is face, and a bad guy. In Mexico we have the rudos, and in wrestling we have the heels. But we can see a match, because we don't say fight, we say a match. We can see a match between two heels, two faces. I don't know, but there are a lot of matches, like 2 against 2, triple threat is about 3 wrestlers, fatal 4-way 4 wrestlers. There are a lot of matches. Okay, this is the first thing to know. But we need to speak about the biggest wrestling company in the whole world, the WWF. Yes, this is the first name of the WWE, and the president of this industry, of this wrestling organization, is Vincent McMahon, the father, because in this picture we have Vince McMahon and Vince McMahon Jr., but we talk about him later. So, in these years, maybe the 70s, the wrestling business was different than now. In the United States, all the states was like in a fight for this, the wrestling. Yes, all the promoters fight against others to make money, and was a different thing. It was a difficult thing to do money, because all the promoters want to be the number one. So in the 80s we see this, the first logo of the World Wrestling Federation. Now Vince Kennedy McMahon Jr., the son, bought the company of his father, and he need to create a superstar, a hero, a wrestler that all the kids, the families all watch it. So he created Hulk Hogan in the 80s. Hulk Hogan is maybe the most familiar wrestling of all time. We see Hulk Hogan in Rocky 3 and Karate Kid and another movies. And there is something that changed the world of wrestling forever, and his name is WrestleMania. WrestleMania was a pay-per-view, a show to connect all the currency fans of wrestling, the hardcore fans of wrestling, and the people in general that didn't like to see wrestling all the time, but they watch the movies of the pop culture. In this show, we have in the main event Hulk Hogan and Mr. T, a famous star in the United States, against Roddy Piper and Mr. Wonderful, 2 very hot heels. All was good in the 80s, a lot of money. The World Wrestling Federation with WrestleMania become the biggest organization of wrestling. But now in the 90s, the World Wrestling Federation presents us new superstars like Kevin Nash, in this moment, Diesel and Razor Ramon, and the face of this new era, Bret Hart. So, what happened with Hulk Hogan? We talk about that later. If we are talking about the history of the WWE, we can step up the Monday Night Wars. Maybe the most famous thing in wrestling in the United States. This is in the final years of the 90s, again, maybe 1997 and 1998 and all of that. Okay, how began this Monday Night Wars? I will present you a little video and I will talk to you. This video is a resume of what the Monday Night Wars was. So there was another company with a lot of money, called it WCW, and they want to end with WWE. So WWE they have a very famous popular program all the Monday nights, called it Raw, and the competition WCW, you can see Hulk Hogan here, we talk about that. WCW take that and create a new show, Monday Night Nitro. So there was a fight for the ratings and who makes more money. But WCW was his president was Ted Turner, the TNT president. So they have a lot of money and they can control all the business, because Hulk Hogan goes to WCW for all the money. Bret Hart goes to WCW for all the money. Diesel, Scott Hall, all the great wrestlers in the 80s in WWE goes to WCW for the money. And what happens now? The WWE is in a very problem because his ratings are getting bad numbers. So Vince McMahon think a new idea. Normally in the wrestling in the 80s and the middle of the 90s was a very familiar thing. But now with this problem of the Monday Night Wars, Vince McMahon took that and exploded the wrestling world. So now we can see bad wars, more sexuality, more spectacular things that in WCW we don't have. So the face of this new era is a Stone Cold Steve Austin, so you can see, just for the picture, what I'm talking about. And new characters, new faces that in this place, in this moment, they have a lot of creativity to show them to the world and make the competition to WCW. We have Triple H and another very famous, The Rock. So, what happened next? With all this new attitude called the Attitude Era of WWE, they win the war. This war is about 3 years and they win the war. They destroyed WCW and they bought WCW. So in the last program of WCW, Shane McMahon, the son of Vince McMahon, starts the program and says that now WCW is in the hands of WWE. This is the most famous thing in the world about wrestling in the United States, the Monday Night Wars, because it's a very popular thing, a very popular moment. All the United States was watching wrestling, the half in WCW, the half in WWE. In the 2000s era, we have new faces like John Cena, Randy Orton, Batista, and some older faces like Ric Flair or Triple H. But now the WWE is the #1 in the world. There is no more competition and they have all the creativity and all the rights reserved of WCW. And today we can say that WWE is a big company. They have a lot of money, and they have not only the rights of WCW, they have the rights too of ECW, another small company, the NWA, the AWA, and a lot of companies that they are bought. So that's all for me. You now know the history of WWE and how this company makes so big. So thank you very much. This is all for me.